Shalom uvracha from Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. We are privileged with the help of God to continue our study of Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers. Tonight, the second part of chapter 2, Mishnah 19. This is, last week we also studied this Mishnah. We will continue its study this evening. Perek Bet, Mishnah Yutet, the 19th Mishnah of chapter 2. Please make sure you have the same numbering system that we have. The Mishnah begins with the words Rabbi Elazar Omer. We are studying about the requirement of being so diligent, so careful in the study of Torah, so that one can properly answer heretical claims, questions, and challenges that are posed by people who don't necessarily accept the validity of Torah, or perhaps even those that do accept the validity of Torah, but legitimately are asking questions. They want clarifications in Torah literature. And Rabbi Elazar seems to say that a person should study Torah very carefully. Hevei shakud lilmod Torah v'da ma shetashiv le'epikoros. According to one reading, it's not two separate statements, but one statement is clarifying that which will happen as a result of the other. If a person will learn Torah with a great deal of dedication, then that person will be in a position lahashiv le'epikoros. That person will know how to properly respond to a heretic. The question was raised many years ago, if indeed there are answers for heretics, so why do you have to tell me to study Torah? There was a great teacher in Yeshiva Torah B'dat. He actually taught in the English department, the General Studies department. I believe he taught English. I think his name was Mr. Saltzman. He once said, well, if the Mishnah is teaching that a person should know how to answer the claims of Epikorsim, so just write the answers in the Mishnah. In other words, they're saying, study Torah, so you should know how to answer an Epikoros. Well, write us, give us a list of the answers, and then we'll have a guide to answering Epikorsim. And as he so correctly explained, there are no answers to all of the questions that can be written on one page here in the Mishnah. Every generation has its questions. Every generation is troubled by a new aspect, another aspect, a different nuance. And even if they would write the answers to the questions that were being posed at the time of the Mishnah, at the time of Rabbi Elazar, it wouldn't suffice for our generation. Anyone that's ever read the monumental work in Jewish philosophy of one of our greatest rabbis in world history, of Maimonides, anyone who ever has read Rambam's Moreh Nevuchim, the Guide for the Perplexed. I've met so many people who study that book. They don't know what is he talking about. These questions don't even bother them. He has a whole section talking about certain levels of descriptions of God. You know, and this person has read the Tanakh, who knows how many times. It never bothered him that it says the eyes of God, the face of God, the back of God, the hands of God, the feet of God, and Rambam, the whole beginning of the book. Who knows how long he spent trying to analyze all of those concepts. In fact, there are some people who read the Guide for the Perplexed, and they get perplexed as a result of reading the Guide for the Perplexed. I mean, it doesn't help them because those are not the questions that bother. They're not at all These issues are not their issues. So as Mr. Saltzman said, you can't write the answers to all the questions. You can't, because the questions, take on new forms. And at different periods, different people are asking different kinds of questions. But what you can say is, if you truly are dedicated to the study of Torah, you will have answers. You will have answers. I remember that someone once jokingly said, how did this person become an epikuros? How did he become an epikuros? I mean, he was so righteous. They said, half smilingly and half seriously, that after the cholent, after the chamin, on the Shabbat afternoon, this person's custom was to study the Avar Benel. Now, the Avar Benel's style of writing is quite fascinating. He has question number 1, question number 2, question number 3, question number 5, question number 10, question number 20, 30 questions and questions and questions. And he said, unfortunately, every week, after the cholent, he would read the questions of the Avar Benel and then fall asleep. And that's it. He never got to any answers. I mean, so he just was left with all these questions, and the book makes no sense because so many aspects of the story are problematic. Havei shakud l'lmod Torah. Be diligent. Be diligent in the study of Torah, and really try to find those answers. The continuation of the Mishnah, which speaks about da lifnei mi ata amel, and consider before whom you are working, before whom you are toiling. Rambam, in his commentary, speaks about how often a person has to study beyond levels of Torah, beyond levels of understanding of just Torah, that often, in the language of the Rambam, milvad limud ha-Torah, alecha gam lilmod gam chochmot chitzoniot, k'dei sheteda lashiv lepikoros. This is complicated. Are all the answers going to be found only? Are all the answers going to be found only in Torah literature, or do you have to study science? Do you have to study the exact sciences? Do you have to the social sciences? How far do you have to go to answer an epikuros? And then he says, well, the Mishnah's warning, even if you're going to go there, remember, da lifnei mi ata amel. There are people who, when they read in the paper that they uncovered proof from several million years ago about certain things that were going on planet Earth, and they're studying in their religious studies that the world is 5,778 years old, and they're baffled. They really are. Or they go to museums and they don't know what to do. They walk around. This is from an age of 2 million years ago, and this is from many hundreds of thousands of years ago. And then they're telling them Taf Shin Ayin Het. What Taf Shin Ayin Het? What are they talking about? And I believe that it's very, very important. It's very, very important to always raise, as I said last time we learned this Mishnah, at the beginning of this Mishnah last week. I believe it's the obligation of Torah teachers to raise the questions that are raised in the world, to hear the questions in the yeshiva, to hear the questions in the Beit Midrash, and through the study of Torah to find the proper answers. There are those who say, I don't want to expose the students to the questions because maybe this will baffle them. My personal opinion, you don't have to accept it, is that it's far greater a benefit to do so in the yeshiva, assuming that the overwhelming majority of people will encounter these arguments and these challenges and these critiques and criticisms not in the yeshiva environment. Who's going to be there to answer them? Now, it could be they'll be so dedicated that they'll come back to their rabbis, to their rabbanim and mashpi'im, and say, "Oh, I heard this question. I don't know what to do with it." But it could also be the opposite. Therefore, I think it is important to study carefully if the continuation of the Mishnah means that a person has to be amel, a person has to toil in other areas and other disciplines beyond Torah. I believe it was the Gaon of Vilna who said that which a person lacks in an understanding of other sciences, of other disciplines, of other forms of wisdom, they're lacking manyfold in the study of Torah. Maybe a person has to be careful, lifnei mi ata amel, to be ever present with an understanding of God in their consciousness. A person can theoretically, the danger of trying to find answers to the epikoros can be, God forbid sometimes, that they're trying to answer the epikoros, and then they're so involved in the literature and in the claims and in the studies of the epikoros that they themselves become epikorsim. Since their study is about epikorsim, so and they're reading the books of the epikorsim all the time, they're so influenced by it. Instead of refuting it, they themselves are swayed and drawn in. Therefore, according to some, the continuation of the Mishnah, Da'alif Ne'mi Ata Amel, means don't ever lose a level of consciousness. All your studies, even if the studies have nothing directly to do with Torah, even if you're now studying earth science, even if now you're studying geology, even if now you're studying astronomy, even if now you're studying physics or chemistry or biology, it doesn't matter. But just Da'alif Ne'mi Ata Amel, make sure that you never lose sight of God in your studies. It would seem that this is an important element. It's an important element in all people's levels of learning, of how to understand this concept of Masha Tashiv le'epikoros. I remember when it was more popular, the world of so-called biblical criticism, and there were two approaches in the rabbinic world to how to deal with the challenges. Thank God today I think it's much less in vogue, and I think that biblical criticism is not the major level of counter study to Torah. It seems to me that there were those who said, let's not get involved in that whole world, because once you're going to start talking about different usages of God in different kinds of places in the Torah, and in one place Elohim is emphasized, and in one place Hashem is emphasized, or there are repetitions in the story, and there are changes in the nuances of the way the Torah tells the story, you'll be opening a Pandora's box. And there were those who were really afraid of learning that way. The other school of thought said just the opposite. You know, Hevei Shakud L'Lmod Torah. Almost every question that was raised ever by a Bible critic has been discussed at length in midrashic literature, in Kabbalistic literature, in analytic literature of the Torah. But you have to study it. You have to know what you're learning. You know, Hevei Shakud L'Lmod Torah, and Da'alif Ne'mi Ata Amel. Be aware of God in everything that you're studying. God should be there. I remember Rabbi Miller said that he felt, I think today it's not that way, but he often mentioned, Rabbi Avigdor Miller, Zichrono Livracha, Rav Miller said that there are places where they were teaching general studies, even to religious students, and the teachers were not necessarily, religiously observant, and he felt that this was a major breach in an understanding of this Mishnah, in an understanding of proper levels of education. The same way it would be inconceivable to have a person who's not connected to Torah teach Chumash, or teach Mishnah, or teach Talmud, especially in a yeshiva environment. If a person is going to get up and teach various theories maybe evolution, and not have any religious discussion connected to that in the yeshiva environment, then maybe that's the opposite of what's being said here. You know, maybe it's even more important that the biology teacher should be, passionate in the Torah study, and maybe that teacher could have more of an influence, religiously speaking, than even the teacher teaching the Rav or the Moreh or the Rebbe teaching Gemara, because he'll hear it from someone who has this great wisdom. Maybe it's important to bring in all the great scientists. You know, we have a whole. I'm talking about, thank God, many thousands of people who are very, very diligent in general studies, have reached major levels of excellence in the world, respected by the general world. And it could be that these should be the people who should be teaching the Torah students. And when they see that here's a major scientist, a major researcher, a major philosopher, a major thinker, and they're so dedicated to the principles of Torah, this could change an attitude. Because if they think that the only ones who believe this way are people who have never learned anything outside of Torah, this could be troubling to some students. Rav Miller Zatzal told us, he said it publicly, so I hope it's okay. I'm saying it on YouTube. If I'm erring, someone should correct me. But I remember that he said that one great rabbi told him that it's very, very important for him to study the so-called New Testament and to study the Quran. And over the years that I was privileged to know Rav Miller, I would say that he was well-versed, well-read in both books. Not a cursory reading, not just he read it. Since so many of the questions from the Christian world, so many of the questions from the Islamic world were based on those texts, he felt it was necessary. Is it necessary for everybody? I'm not going to rule on on this question, but if you don't even know what it says in those books, it's very hard if somebody's coming to you and, God forbid, saying they're considering adhering to a certain system. Maybe you need, besides the Havei Shakud L'Mod Torah, according to some, the continuation of Dalif Nemiata Amel can be toiling in disciplines beyond the discipline of Torah. The end of the Mishnah is rather striking, where it says, Ne'emanhu Baal Malachtecha She'yishalem Lecha Schar Pu'ulatecha. You can rely upon your employer, Baal Malachtecha, that the employer will take care of paying you for your labor. What does this have to do with anything we're talking about here? We're talking about answering heretics. We're answering challenges and questions. And suddenly he speaks about, don't worry about the fact that the one that's hiring you to do this work will pay for your expenses, will pay your wages, will pay your salary. According to certain schools of thought in the Mefarshim, this is what it means. If a person has to be so dedicated to study, if a person has to be so dedicated to learning, if a person has to be so aware of all the nuances of religious thought, that's a lifetime pursuit. What's going to happen to my how am I going to live? How am I going to be able to survive? So Ne'emanu Baal Malachtecha. Ne'emanu Baal Malachtecha. Don't worry about it. If you're really doing this for the sake of God, Ne'emanu, God is trustworthy. You are acting for the purpose of defending God's system. Ne'emanu Baal Malachtecha. She'yishalem Lecha Schar Pu'ulatecha. God will be ever present to be there to help you through life with the rewards and the wages that you so aptly deserve, especially if you're following the teaching of Rabbi Elazar, trying so hard to study Torah in the all-encompassing way. Maybe on every passage of Torah, we should always incorporate into our study maybe the way that certain other people in the world see the pasuk, and see how we would deal with these with these challenges, maybe we should make sure that we're always connecting Hakadosh Baruch Hu to everything that we're learning in all aspects of our Torah study, as we will learn with the help of God. Hashocheach davar echad mimishnato. The rabbis speak later on in Pirkei Avot about the one that forgets even one aspect of his study. How serious a violation that is, to forget one aspect of the violation, one aspect of the Torah study. And every page of Torah, every sentence of Torah, every word of Torah, and perhaps every letter of Torah is ever so significant. Hashocheach davar echad. If you overlook one part of the Torah, if you don't see any significance in it, maybe ma'aleh alav hatakakatu, as it says later, ki'ilu mitchayev benafsho, God forbid, it's a serious sin against one's soul. There is a Hasidic interpretation. Hashocheach davar echad mimishnato. Echad means one, the oneness of God. Maybe in everything you're learning. Hashocheach davar echad. Don't ever forget about Hashem echad in all of your studies. If you take God with you, whatever you're learning, and you learn in a religious way with Hashem echad, and you are not shocheach davar echad mimishnato, maybe you'll be able to be successful in helping the entire world see the truth of God and the validity of Torah. Ki mala'ah ha'aretz de'at Hashem kamayim layam mechasim. We're hoping for a world, I hope tonight, where everyone is open and exposed to the greatness of God, to the beauty of Torah, to the all-encompassing nature of the divine revelation, and may each of us celebrate together with the whole world the true service of connection, and may the world of Epicorsim be removed, because everyone will be able to clearly see in the most open of ways the greatness and the truth of the true God. Thank you so much for listening. We wish you success in your journeys of studying Torah to answer the Epikoros. Shalom.